And I will kick off now with a welcome to country. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Careers with STEM. From my place here in Gadigal country, I would like to acknowledge the Gadigal of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of this land, and to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. The original STEM innovators, and it's always a delight to acknowledge the incredible legacy of technology that we have from 60,000 years worth of Aboriginal and Torres Strait ownership of the land. So welcome to the next edition of Careers with STEM Cybersecurity. We're here today to meet some cybersecurity specialists who are on hold to bust some myths about what cybersecurity careers really are, what the big deal is, why they're in the news, and to find out some more facts and figures. For example, did you know that you don't need a Bachelor of IT to get into cybersecurity? And that people skills are highly valued. There's an enormous number of paths and an enormous number of really exciting roles in this area. So let's jump into those myths, and please feel free to use the Q&A function, which you'll find at the bottom of the webinar, and to introduce yourself in the chat. We love to answer your specific questions and to find out more about you and what you want to know about this particular career area. I'll shortly be joined by some inspiring people who work in cybersecurity to help me answer all of your questions. But first, I would just like to pop on my screen share and just to say a huge thanks to our sponsors for the magazine. The content for this webinar comes from the Cybersecurity Careers magazine. You can get a copy. They are free for schools and you can grab one from the website. And the magazine is brought to you by our sponsors, the Commonwealth Bank and the Australian Computing Academy. So what is Careers with STEM? Basically, we are all about busting myths across all STEM careers. And we believe that everybody should have access to a better future through careers in STEM. We like to talk about it through combining STEM with your interest. STEM is not just about being a scientist or working in technology as a software engineer. You can combine STEM with all of your interest areas. Whether you're into fashion, you can combine that and create technology and 3D printed clothes. Whether you're into sports and you can combine maths and sports and become a footy statistician. STEM jobs are growing 1.9 times faster than other jobs, yet enrolment in STEM degrees and courses are growing much more slowly or even declining, particularly for women and minorities. And we'd like to change all of that. I started my own career in STEM studying geology and founded Refraction Media 7 years ago. And there's a picture of my dog, which hopefully you won't hear in the background. One of my great passions is Asian foods and I love sushi. So let's find out a little bit about you and who we have at the webinar today. I'll just stop my screen share and start our poll. So the first thing I'd like to know is what you know about cybersecurity. Have you ever thought about a career in cybersecurity yourself? Our second question is, what are the skills that you think that you need to work in cybersecurity careers? Is it computer programming, creativity, empathy, communications, or problem solving? See the answers starting to come in. So looks like most of you have thought a little bit perhaps about a career in cybersecurity or just haven't at all. And the skills that you think you need, it's great to see people choosing creativity, empathy, communication, problem solving and teamwork. You might have heard these talked about as soft skills or enterprise skills. And a lot of you have chosen computer programming as well. So let's find out if that's true and what else we know about cybersecurity careers. I'll just hop back in to the screen here. So as I said, this is part of the Careers with STEM series of magazines. We do one per term and deliver them across free to all schools. This is about our special edition, which is on the flip side of our technology magazine. We also manage the Careers with STEM website where you can find updated news, videos and do career quizzes. And we do webinars and video interviews as well. We've just launched a series of job kits on our website. So if you're intrigued to find out more about specific jobs like software engineering or machine learning engineering or data science, you can find these on our website as well. So cybersecurity is a bit of a big deal, and we know that cybersecurity careers are growing in demand. But just how big a deal is cybersecurity? Digital activity contributes $426 billion to the Australian economy, and the Australian cybersecurity sector is predicted to grow by 300% by 2026. 17,000 additional cybersecurity workers will be needed in Australia at the same time. And just 4 weeks of disruption to digital activity as a result of a cyber attack could lose us 163,000 jobs. Just 1 week of disruption to digital activity as a result of a cyber attack would cost the economy $5 billion. So today we're going to look at where people use cybersecurity in their careers across different industry sectors and bust myths about working in cybersecurity. We'll also meet 3 innovative people and hear about their careers and pathways. So the first myth to bust: cybersecurity is about much more than tech. In fact, many areas require people skills, which was great to see you mention before, like analysing, problem solving, communication and collaboration. You can also move into cybersecurity from another study area or a whole nother career. UQ Cybersecurity Professor Ryan Coe says that many of the cybersecurity challenges the government and industry face are highly complex. You need to decide whether threats come from activism, geopolitical activity, or criminal activity, for example. If you understand cybersecurity, you can work anywhere from preventing crime to policy. Alicia Hummel, who's shown here, is a cybersecurity consultant for KPMG, and she's a mentor for the Victorian Indigenous Engineering Winter School. She moved into a degree in cybersecurity after initially thinking of going into law. So that's just one example of one of the pathways. So what's it like to work in cybersecurity? You might be overwhelmed by the whole new lingo, from your cybersecurity posture to phishing, which is email scams, SMS phishing or smishing, bugs and exploits. You'll also learn about networks, basic cryptography techniques like ciphers. And there's some fantastic competitions that you can join to really get you into that experience of working in cybersecurity and being in that space. You'll also learn about the basics of cyber safety, always useful, like what you can share online, your full name, nickname, pet's name, sports and hobbies, and of course, peppy memes. And you can learn about what you should be careful about sharing, like your holiday plans, your email address, school and mobile and other personal info. And what you definitely shouldn't share, like logins or passwords, don't laugh, some people do, as well as your address, banking details, no matter how convincing that email or text that you get, or a pic of your new driver's license, for example. There's a lot to learn about cybersecurity. So how do you start learning from scratch, particularly for schools where you're not experiencing these kind of teachings until, maybe university level? From social media sleuthing to crafty cryptography, the school's cybersecurity challenges help students gain skills and knowledge about cybersecurity practices and principles. The school's cybersecurity challenges are a series of realistic learning modules that teach cybersecurity techniques and coding. They're a great way to skill up in the technical fields and human aspects of cybersecurity, and they can be done in groups or in class or solo at home. Challenges take between 4 to 8 hours to complete, and they are a lot of fun. It's not just learning, on a screen bit by bit. You're embedded into the real world of, having digging through people's social media accounts and really finding out that information. So to take us through this a little bit more is James from the Computing Academy, who created the challenges. Professor James Curran is the Academic Director of the Australian Computing Academy, and he's Associate Professor in the School of Computer Science at the University of Sydney. He's the Director of the National Computer Science School, the largest computer science school outreach program in Australia, which each year over 10,000 teachers and students participate in through the 5-week National Computing Science School Challenge. James is also the co-founder of Grok Learning, an edtech startup that aims to teach children everywhere to learn to code. He was a writer of the Australian curriculum Digital Technologies and the new National Computing Curriculum. In 2014, James was named ICT Leader of the Year by the ICT Educators of New South Wales and the Australian Council for Computers in Education. I know he's a busy man. He's obviously wearing a lot of hats, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have James joining us now. I'd like to invite James to unmute, and we'll pop into our Q&A.
Hi Heather, and thanks for the introduction.
Thanks, James. Great to meet you. So we've learned a lot about the cybersecurity challenges. We talked a little bit about the fact that you need tech skills, but other skills as well. So I know you do a lot in the kind of tech learning space. So what's unique about learning cybersecurity skills?
Well, I think the first thing to realize is that cybersecurity is an enormously broad field. There are just so many different kinds of areas you can work in. So if you're interested in law, if you're interested in finance, if you're interested in technology, if you're interested in psychology, pretty much if you've got an interest of almost any kind, I can probably find a cybersecurity career that actually connects with your particular interest. So if we talk about unique skills, we're actually talking about a really wide range of jobs that sometimes share some common skills. So for example, teamwork, collaboration, communication skills, and so on are central across the board. And I was really great to see that empathy was actually ticked quite a lot there by the participants of the webinar. But the range of what technical skills are required range from very little technical skill, but a really deep understanding of human psychology, for example, through to some of the most advanced technical skills that you could have as a programmer, data analyst, software engineer, and so on. So the range is really quite enormous. I think something that underpins all of them is a sense of curiosity and problem solving. Right? Somehow, whether it's the human problem or the technology problem, you need to be someone that really likes to get in and drill down on a problem and try and understand how can we solve what is actually a really challenging thing, whether it's convincing the human users, who are often the weakest point in any system, how to make the right choices in the way that they interact with systems, right through to, is this bit of code actually safe? And to try and identify whether there's a bug in a bit of code that could potentially allow someone to exploit it in nefarious ways is amongst the most challenging, and I'd have to say enjoyable aspect of writing code that you could imagine. So I think a unique skill is a bit hard to say because the options are almost limitless.
Yeah, and I think, from what I've learned about cybersecurity, being resilient, being able to think outside the box, it's just such a fascinating area. How can students best prepare for cybersecurity careers?
Well, I think the first thing is awareness of what it is. Having a look at the different options available and actually thinking about how their own behavior affects their own cybersecurity of them and the people around them. But following that then, starting to develop some of those technical skills will always be useful, even if you end up going down a more non-technical path. So my strong recommendation would be for students to, do as much statistics as they can, do as much computer programming as they can, try these things, because then they're things that take a while to develop those skills, but at the same time, also really get into problem solving opportunities that exist at school, especially working in teams, and find out what are you good at? What are the bits that you love doing? And then say, okay, cyber looks like an interesting place to apply those skills. Let me go and find what the options are available that are specifically in cyber.
So tell us about the school cybersecurity challenges. They've been going for a while now, something like 50,000 students, I think, had
done. We're nearly to 80,000 unique students now. It's going gangbusters. So the school cybersecurity challenges are a set of activities designed to give students a realistic experience of being a cybersecurity professional. But at the same time, we've tied it explicitly to what kids need to learn in the Australian curriculum, digital technologies. Let me give you just an example by talking about the first challenge for just a little bit. So in the first challenge, your character, Sam, is a member of your school's white hat cybersecurity team. And their job is to sleuth through various social media profiles. We've built a fake social media site. So we've got a fake Facebook and a fake Instagram. And your character is embedded amongst about 20 different characters who are all interacting with each other on social media. And by doing that, you're actually going to learn how easily your information, if shared online, can be used against you in various ways. And what we've found is that all of the students that participate, as Heather said before, say it's loads of fun. It's just that the classroom is really excited about having a go, and a much wider range of people discover that they're actually good at this. And through the content, as well as doing the sleuthing, you'll also be hearing from cybersecurity professionals that do this as their day job. And I think it's the best combination, discovering that you're really good at something, and then in the next slide, discovering that someone gets paid a really great salary to do exactly that work every single day. So I'd strongly encourage kids to have a go at the first cybersecurity challenge. The advantage of that one is a broad funnel. You do not need to have technical skills to have a go at that one. But if you find you're great at it, then move on to Cyber 2, 3, and 4 that will introduce increasingly technical skills that are also part of cybersecurity, like cryptography, network security, and web application security.
Fantastic. And I think, you know, you're right. Some of the things that I learned about doing these challenges and about cybersecurity is it's enormously fun. And I love the storytelling aspect of that and the sleuthing. It is really challenging. What did you learn about cybersecurity in putting together these challenges?
So I think probably the first thing I learned by working closely with all of our partners is it's a rare example of a field that's extremely collaborative. And I don't just mean within one organization, but I mean that organizations like all of the banks, for example, work closely together to combat cybersecurity issues. So they, unlike, you know, if you think about the banks, most of the time, they're probably competing with each other quite aggressively for customers and so on, but they all agree and come together as a community to say that we need to fight this together. So it's almost the exact opposite of the stereotype. The stereotype is hoodie, green screen, basement, on your own, typing away. The actual pursuit of cybersecurity protections for our society is probably the most collaborative I've actually seen across all kinds of computer science in 20 years of working with industry. So collaboration is really strong and really important, but also how well the technical and non-technical people have to work together to deliver things. There's no point in having a great technical solution, but then not successfully communicating that to all of the staff in a large organization. So if you're interested in tech, but you don't necessarily think you want to be a programmer every day or a data analyst, there are lots of opportunities to be working in tech, but not necessarily doing technical work every single day.
Yeah, that's so true. And I can see the nodding in the background going on from our cybersecurity professionals we have waiting in the wings going, yeah, not hoodies, yes, collaborative. A question come through from Stefan, thanks Stefan, saying, are there opportunities in cybersecurity for career changes and mature age individuals? You and I always speak about how I always almost convince myself to go into cybersecurity when I create this content. And what would be the best avenue to enter the industry?
Oh, look, so first of all, there are a number of options right now, and industry is absolutely screaming out for people with life experience, knowing how to work with people, already be good collaboratively and so on. All of the options that Stefan has mentioned there are TAFE certificates that you can get started with. There are Masters of IT with specializations in cybersecurity at various universities, in person or online teaching around Australia. But there's also a number of industry players that have certification and boot camps for cybersecurity and various other things you can do as well. But honestly, cybersecurity is a lifelong learning career too. So it's never a matter of going, I'm done here, I've trained and I'm ready to go. The attackers continue to come up with new ways of attacking things. As we develop new technologies, we introduce new opportunities to be exploited. And I think it's one of the most amazing things about this career is expect to be learning every single day. And so think of that uni or TAFE or other opportunity, educational opportunity, is the very starting point of a long line of really fascinating learning.
Yeah, fantastic. And finally, James, I know going back to the challenges and speaking of that ongoing learning, what have you got coming up in the cybersecurity challenges, and what's sort of next coming up in that space?
So literally on Monday, we released a year 5-6 version of this introductory cybersecurity challenge. So we've got a version that's now suitable for primary schools to use for the 5 and 6 students. That entirely came out of demand from primary school teachers. So we would run professional development sessions. They would try the challenges and go, well, where's our version? So that's the first thing that we've just finished. The next one that we'll be releasing over the next few months will be a new challenge on phishing, malware, and scams. And we know especially that most kids these days by somewhere in high school have their own mobile phone. The most likely starting point for them to be first exposed to some form of cybersecurity attack is actually likely to be via their phone, like something like a smishing attack. And we're really excited to get that out the door in the new year.
Fantastic. Thanks, James. I've just have a Q&A come through from Charles Impey as well. Let me know if this is in your ballpark, because it's kind of talking in the tertiary area. Charles asks, often there are peak associations that endorse specific courses related to their fields. Is there a best access point of endorsed tertiary level courses for students in regional areas who often cannot access the same level of face-to-face contact as their city cousins? Charles is from Tamworth. Thanks for joining us, Charles. Great question. Any ideas of the unis and what sort of being offered in that space?
I'm not sure that any of the professional associations are yet endorsing particular degrees or not in cybersecurity. I can say that there's a good consistent quality on cybersecurity education at the tertiary level right now in Australia. And if you're new to the discipline, I think any of the online degrees would be an option for you if you were studying from, say, regional New South Wales. So off the top of my head, I know, for example, that Edith Cowan University in WA has a very well-respected, I believe, online offering. But if you search Australian universities, .edu.au, cybersecurity, you'll find a range of options available there. And there are definitely online versions of those.
Fantastic. Thanks, James. James will join us a little bit later for a panel with all of our panelists. So there will be a chance to ask more questions. Please do pop that into the Q&A. I'll just hop back now into the presentation. And now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the myth busting area. So we talked about hoodies in the basement. What do we find when we really look into what cybersecurity careers involve? So let's bust some common myths. Number one, you need to study IT at uni. Not so. There's no one path into cybersecurity. While she started out in IT, Kamilaroi woman Alison switched to her majors partway through uni and then found an internship opportunity through Wallangamuru, Macquarie University's Pathway and Engagement Program for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students. She's now interning part-time as a junior cybersecurity analyst at CBA while completing her degree. Myth number two, you need to be a tech expert. Not all cybersecurity careers are tech related. Annalise Rilewska works in Westpac's Security Assessment Services team who attack systems, bad processes and procedures within the company and people's bad habits like opening fake emails. For example, Annalise might try to uncover weaknesses in the bank's security processes by requesting access to a building without the right pass, being as persistent as a real imposter. She says there's heaps of different roles in cybersecurity. You might enjoy more of the creative side, like creating a video campaign to explain what spear phishing is, which is when an attacker sends a targeted fraudulent email to try and gain access to the organisation's confidential information. Myth number three is that there's no room for diversity. As a man on the autism spectrum, Joe Bindley brings these skills and more to NAB's cybersecurity team as part of the bank's neurodiversity program. He says if you have different ways of thinking, you can often get different approaches to solving problems. While studying a Bachelor of IT at Deakin University, Joe joined a company called DXC Technology as part of their DXC Dandelion program, which is about supporting and celebrating the talents and skills of people on the autism spectrum and helping people like Joe build a career in IT. Myth number four, cybersecurity is an antisocial boys club. Not so. Cybersecurity analyst Alice McCracken started a girls' code club when she was still at uni. As she graduated, she moved into a cybersecurity role at ANZ, and she's found that there's similar support networks at that level as well, like the Australian Women in Security Network. Myth number 5, you need to get qualified before you can get a job. In fact, the demand for cybersecurity roles is so high that you can actually get amazing qualifications at the same time as you get paid in a career as well. So we're going to bust some more myths now, and I'm absolutely delighted to have Sharnis Lovin join us from CBA. Sharnis is going to tell us about her current role and also her past role. She's moved into a new space, but as a digital forensic analyst at CBA, she traces the footprints left by cyber criminals. There's a lot more to her job than coding and tech. Sharnis is one of Commonwealth Bank of Australia's 2020 Enterprise Services graduates. She was a member of the digital forensics team, and her job is to make sure data is recorded as evidence for trials and investigations. So interesting, and thank you, Sharnis. I'd love to get you to unmute now and join us to tell us a little bit more about your career journey.
Thanks, Heather. Thanks for the introduction.
So how did you first get interested in tech?
Yeah, so I guess I started fairly young. I guess it began with computer games. So I would often download a lot of computer games, and one time I accidentally got malware on my computer. So I got that off of it, and I really enjoyed the process of that. So that's kind of where my interest began pretty much. And eventually I got just more into computer and tech, playing around with settings, playing around with like partitions on a MacBook so I can install Windows games on my MacBook, and then eventually becoming the tech support for my parents as well. But yeah, that's pretty much how I got started.
That's so cool. So tell me, were you really good at maths and IT at school?
So not particularly actually. So maths wasn't my strongest subject in high school. I was more interested in like English and modern history. However, I did enjoy maths in uni. I could understand like how the maths applied in terms of like computer science, like seeing like the logical side of like computers and it's pretty much like computer logic. So that I preferred over high school maths. And IT, I did enjoy in middle school. So I did well in middle school. However, when I decided to do it for my HSC subject, the ICT subject, I was only one of 2 students who applied for that. And unfortunately, that wasn't enough to run a whole subject. So I left it at that until I started IT in uni.
Yeah, fantastic. I remember watching a whole bunch of kids pull computers apart as part of a experiment at Powerhouse Museum once. They called the slow motion explosion. And I think if only they taught tech in that way, I would have totally been doing it in school. You know, it'd be really cool to see that, see different ways of doing it. So
Yeah,
you first got into CBA through a summer holiday internship program while still studying for your degree. So what are some of the different things that you do and some of the different things that you learned on that program?
Yeah, so I got placed into a really cool area in CommBank. I worked on the tools that what I consider are the backbone of all software development in CBA. So I learnt CI/CD pipeline, which is pretty much like the process from programming like a feature on your laptop and that showing up all the way like onto your mobile phone in the CommBank app. So it was really cool seeing that side of things. So that involved like the maintenance of those tools, which included like scripting, software development, and then there was a lot of like soft skills that were taught as well, such as like presentation skills, team communication, different like project management, like Scrum methodologies, things that I learned in uni that I could also apply while working in the summer internship program.
It must have been an amazing experience. You have been working as in digital forensics and you're now working as a pen tester. Tell us what a typical day is like for you.
Yeah, so I guess in digital forensics, a typical day was gathering like electronic evidence. So that would be like access logs, emails, messages, and then I'd be creating like a forensically sound copy of that data, meaning it can't be modified and can be used as like legal evidence. And then we process all of this data, which pretty much like allows us to analyze and try and find what we're looking for in support of an investigation. And then pen testing. So I've been in pen testing for like a bit over a month. There's been a lot of learning on the job, a lot of free online materials that I've been using to understand like all of the different types of hacks that you can do, all of the different vulnerabilities that you can find. But yeah, so a typical day in pen testing would look like, so I'd be working on a project, and then there's different tech stacks for like each project. So it'd be really understanding what that tech stack involves, and then a lot of research across all of that to understand the vulnerabilities across the tech stack. And then of course, pen testing, trying to break into the application, break any security implementations. But yeah, that's the gist.
I just think it's amazing that you can get paid to, you know, find the vulnerabilities in your own company and kind of hack into your own company. It must be pretty cool. What's the best part of your job?
So best part is definitely the learning aspects. So I'm always learning. So in pen testing, of course, I've been learning a lot because I just recently moved here. I really enjoy understanding like the lower level of processes and being able to understand that and find vulnerabilities and successfully break into a system or like infiltrating data is rewarding. Of course, it's not good for the bank, but that's what I'm here for. It's really nice knowing that I'm helping to keep the bank secure, and also just like the flexibility of being able to move. So from my old team in digital forensics to this pen testing team has been really cool, and the people I've come across in CommBank are just amazing. Like they're all so passionate and supportive, and yeah, it's a great space.
Yeah, that's so important, isn't it? Just working with, you know, people that you like and in ways that you like that. I
Yeah.
know there's just so much demand for cybersecurity roles. What would your advice be to students who are looking to work into these roles in the future?
Yeah, so I think definitely take the time to learn things in your own time. There's so many resources available online for free where you can practice your skills, like investigating your own network traffic. You can do, and only your own network traffic, no one else's. Getting involved in hackathons, capture the flag, stuff like that. They're all available online. And of course, like don't be afraid of cyber. I know a lot of people who are interested in cyber kind of push it away because they're scared of that huge learning curve that there is. But like as James said, if you have that passion and that willing to understand and learn more and like really get into the details and have that tenacity to work in this area, I think it's a really good space.
Yeah, that is fantastic advice. Just Google Capture the Flag. It is a whirlpool of fascinating activities that you can do and join with other people. And I think a lot of people don't understand that in the cybersecurity space, everybody is learning. So I think there's a lot of that kind of sharing activity as well.
Yeah.
I'm just going to jump into a question now from Charles MP again, who asks, did you have to apply for the CommBank internship or was it marketed to you for your university? He's after sharing some information to his year 12 students. Thank you, Charles. And in your experience, is it competitive or a real challenge to secure these internships or exchange programs while at uni?
Yeah, so I looked it up myself, pretty much the summer internship program. I heard about it from another student who applied for it online. So they didn't come to our uni specifically, but it is a fairly easy process to apply for it online. There is a bit of competition, I think. As long as you show that passion and willingness to learn, that's what they're looking for. You don't need all this experience in tech. Like if you're just starting out, that's completely fine.
Fantastic. Thanks, Shanice. Shanice is going to join us a little bit later for our panel as well. I'm just going to hop back in to introduce our next guest, who has a fascinating story also to tell. We're going to be joined now by Jason Spinlow, who is a channel systems engineer at global cybersecurity company Palo Alto Networks. So Jason says he finished high school with average marks. He dreamed of becoming an actor, as we all do, but felt like he needed a fallback job and signed up for a certificate in tech support at TAFE and then moved into IT and landed a gig with a company that focused on cybersecurity. So as a channel systems engineer, he assists and educates IT companies that sell Palo Alto Network's cybersecurity technologies and solution. Jason also performs in theatres and musicals, and so all of these experiences can come into play with how we view and present the cybersecurity discussion. So I'd like to invite Jason to unmute now and join us to tell us a little bit about his career journey. Hi, Jason.
Hey there, Heather, how are you?
I'm good. So this is an unusual career path. Tell us about how what you wanted to do at high school kind of changed, and did you have any idea then that what you do now as a job actually existed?
Look, very good question. What I wanted to do in high school, I think you kind of covered it. It was either join the army or act. That was I mean, it was mainly, the dad saying, you got to have something to fall back on, so go join the army or do something. And because I had no really other idea. In regards to, did I have an idea that this role existed? No, I had no idea that anything like this existed when I left high school.
Yeah, and I think this is so true. I mean, I work on this Careers with STEM area, and a lot of what inspired me personally was finishing my degree and realizing I still didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. Were you good at technology? Was that something that you sort of felt like you had an innate kind of understanding for or ability in?
Yeah, with technology, I seem to have the magic, where you walk up next to someone that's having IT problems and suddenly everything gets fixed. It was funny that would be the thing, like, oh, you've got this must be something about you. You come up next to me and it fixes the problem. And that would be the next, 10 years of discussions every time I go up to sort somebody's, problems out. But starting out from, at being at home and kind of like Shanis being the IT support for the whole family, right? You learn very quickly what to do and what not to do. I think I had an old 386 computer at one point that I saw this thing to extend my virtual memory, and I said, yes, I'll do that. And I blew it up. And then I had to try and figure out how to fix that with my dad standing over the shoulders going, what did you do? so yeah, I think once I started to figure out that I needed to do those things myself and learn it, I found that if I thought about it a bit and went down that path, I was able to generally fix most things or suddenly find I had a knack for doing something in that technology space.
And how did you get interested in cybersecurity particularly? How did you kind of come across that certificate for and think, yeah, okay, I'm going to give this a try?
Well, so I was working for a power products company at the time, and I was working in their warehouse, and I'd shifted into customer service for them. And I ended up fixing more problems inside of the customer service than I was doing my job of customer service. So the finance controller at the time said to me, look, we need someone. Would you think about going to do some training and become our IT support guy? And I had no plan. So I said, yes, okay, fine. And I started a course at TAFE and went through my Cert 4. And from there, it built out. The interest in cybersecurity part actually came a few years later when I was working for another company. I just started with them as a technical support and pre-sales, and they specifically focused on government security. And from there, we started diving into the intricacies of what happens inside of government and finance and those kind of big deals where security needs to be really done well. And if it's not, there's lots of people's heads on chopping blocks. So it was a very big thing that got my interest, that there was so much more to it, especially in government and in finance and those areas.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the interesting things about cybersecurity is you can work across so many different areas. You can work in bigger organizations, smaller organizations. You can be in the startup space. You can really, and what you do really, really matters. Where you heard at the beginning just how much any kind of disruption can cost, and the fact that hundreds and thousands of jobs could be lost in just a kind of short while. So it's such an important job. And tell me particularly about your role as a channel systems engineer. What does a channel systems engineer do on a kind of day-to-day basis?
That's a good question. Channel systems engineer, and I'm sure the company's watching. We have our partner network. So all the smaller organisations or very big organisations that sell their IT services and their professional services to implement our product or any technical product to their customers, be it a CBA or a whoever or a university or a Careers with STEM, right? we have to help them and enable them to understand from a channel systems engineer perspective what the product that they are looking to sell does, how it solves the problem of the organization, or if it's a good fit, you know. And there's plenty of vendors out there that cover all sorts of things from security through to storage or networking or whatever. They're not all going to be the right fit, but understanding the needs of the business and what their problems are, and then where our solution can fit into that and provide them that either, you know, in our perspective, security or a better visibility into everything that they've got going on inside of their network to understand what happens next. That's the part that we're teaching our partners about on a very regular basis to make sure that they go out there with the right information for their customers.
Yeah, what I hear so much of in that is that you're utilizing your communication skills. What have you found? Like, how does your love of acting combined with your career, and are there other ways in which the two sort of feed into each other at all?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I was thinking a bit about this. I think with cybersecurity, you definitely need some thoughts around what you're talking to and feeling the pain of the businesses that you are discussing their problems with. And the more that you come across, especially in a sales engineer or a systems engineer type role where you're talking about the product and you're doing demonstrations of it, you know, instead of just talking at people and showing them something and them glazing over 5 minutes in because, you know, you've lost them because it actually doesn't really cover what they're after because you haven't done the right discovery. So being able to be personable with an organization or the IT person inside of that organization, the CISO or whoever it is, and get their pain points and be able to reference back and convert what your product does to something that can solve their problems. Being able to talk and being able to think on your feet about how it would feel to be in that person's shoes, I think is really important. And how the two feed into each other on a regular basis. You know, this setup I've got around me, I've got a green screen, and that luckily was something I needed to get for my acting course, right? And I've got lights and everything else, and that's something I'm doing for that because I want to do, you know, move into screen acting, or I want to do presentation or whatever it is. But those tools and what I use on that daily basis, I get to use then within my normal day job and be able to be, I don't know, I suppose more, I think I feel more effective in doing so because I feel I connect with people and getting that feeling and leaving them with a feeling that you've moved them somehow. And I'm not talking, you know, emotionally or whatever, but that you've connected and that you understand what they're talking about, and that, you know, at the end of the day that you've got something there that could help them and they know it too.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much, Jason. And I'd like to invite other two panelists to unmute now for a bit of a Q&A as we kind of bring in the end of the session. And please do pop your questions into the Q&A or the chat. We have some that have been emailed in earlier as well. But if I could start with you again, James, because I guess for us it always comes back to, you know, what do you do in schools and how could teachers teach cybersecurity within the kind of framework of the curriculum that we have?
Right. So I think the first thing is to understand that there are two places where it can occur. There's the digital technologies subject within the technologies learning area, but there's also cybersecurity and safety skills that students should be practicing and developing across all learning areas as part of the ICT general capability. So this is not something where a school can say, look, it's just the computing teacher's responsibility to deal with this in high school, for example. It's actually something that every teacher has a responsibility to first of all, develop their own skills, because often what I've found is that adults around kids are worried about what kids are doing online, but actually often it's the adults also making poor social media sharing decisions, and that can have an impact on what information is available out there about the kids that they are responsible for. And I do think that the school cybersecurity challenge, especially Cyber 1, is a great opportunity for every student from year 7 to 12 to get in and have a go. You don't actually need to complete the whole thing to start getting the benefit of it. And a lot of teachers that we've worked with said they actually use it as a reward for their students. So they did the first hour of cyber, and then from time to time, if the class is progressing well, they might say, all right, you can do an extra 30 minutes on cyber. A few teachers report back saying that the kids arrive in class going, can we do more of that today? So it's also something that you can actually do as well as in conjunction with the curriculum. You can do it as an extra side activity, or for those days when you've got a substitute teacher and things like that. And now with the introduction of Cyber 5, the Year 5/6 version, you can extend that right down into primary school as well.
Fantastic. Shauna, it's just looking at then when you get to a university level, how did you incorporate, how does the cyber incorporate it into your uni course, and how sort of important was it for you to have those cyber skills already when you first started working for CBA?
Yeah, so cyber wasn't my major when I was in uni. I did do a few, so I did cryptography in uni, and that covered a little bit of just like the different kind of attacks there are that you can come across, and just understanding cryptography as well, which are like just different encryption types. In some other subjects, I did cover attacks that could happen. So for example, I did a subject in databases, and that covered SQL injection, which is like one of the attacks that you can do against databases. So there wasn't that requirement going into CBA, like having that understanding of cybersecurity. But of course, it would be helpful to know that beforehand. But within CBA, when you join as a summer intern or a grad, they're happy for you to learn these things on the job. And yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Shanice. Jason, Charles says he's loving your career perspectives. Do you still harvest your acting career while concurrently building your cyber career? And how do you kind of, you really have two careers to be passionate about at the same time? How does that work for you?
Look, my wife is very supportive. Yeah, look, I'd still do both. I'm doing an acting course this year, actually, with a school in the city, and it's all for screen acting. Funnily enough, we're doing green screen right at this moment, so this works really well with what I'm doing here. But yes, I try and cultivate the both. I do probably 2 to 3 plays, or try and, if my agent finds a thing for me to do as an extra, I'll take a day off work and go and do an extras part in a movie, just because it's good experience from that side to be on a set and learn those techniques. But at the same time, absolutely picking up and learning on a daily basis around cybersecurity and the tools that, be it Palo Alto Networks has, or other tools that we combine with to do, to give a better tools to organizations out there. I mean, just with Palo Alto Networks, we've got so many different tools and bits and pieces. There's so much for us to learn internally about all these different things. We're either acquiring companies or, and I'm sure Shanice and James have seen this, but the landscape for cybersecurity is never standing still. So you're always learning, and that's one of the exciting things about it. I've shifted quite a few times into different roles over the years, and sometimes it's because you get a little bored. With cybersecurity, I don't think there's a way to get bored in it. It's you're always learning stuff, and you're always picking things up, and you're hearing about a new attack here or there, and there's something that has happened that you have to adjust to, because what was working before doesn't work anymore. And that's where, if we had a silver bullet for everything, nobody would have a job in cybersecurity, right? But we find ourselves that we do because of that.
Yeah, fantastic. And I don't think you'd ever be begging for a job as well. It's such an exciting career path. Jason, you or Shanice might be able to help. Shrudeep Suresh has a question saying he's studying computer science and finance at University of Western Australia. Welcome to Perth. Thanks for joining us. Planning to change to a newly introduced course for 2021 in cybersecurity. And he asked, would cybersecurity as a major be a better option, or would boot camps be more helpful and detailed to get those kind of skills in the first place?
I think from my side, and sorry to jump in, Shanice, I think, I didn't go to university, right? I didn't do that, and I didn't have the grades to do it. I wasn't interested in it from that side because I had no career plan. If you think it's something that you want to go down the path of, and you think it's going to provide you what you need to go through and do that piece of it, then go and do it. We have plenty of people inside of my organization now, the organization I was at beforehand, that have never touched cybersecurity from a training side. They've either done just IT, or in fact, some of them, one of them was a lawyer, and I think she's actually in the Careers with STEM magazine as well. She hadn't been down that path, but stepped into it and understands that it's more understanding the bigger problem. If you know that there are problems out there, would you go out of your house without locking your doors and closing all your windows, and expect nothing to happen and a burglar to walk straight in? If you take that same mentality and put it towards a computer or whatever it is, it's the same thing. We're just putting ones and zeros into it, and we're thinking and slightly altering the way that attack is occurring, right? So there's so much to do and think of just outside of it. If you do have the opportunity to do it, all power to you with it. It's a great position to be in.
Janice, how about you? Uni or boot camps, or a mixture of both?
I guess it really depends on the course and the boot camp. I personally would probably go with uni to get that whole kind of, if cybersecurity is something that you're really committed to, I think doing that as an entire course and majoring in that would be good. However, if you still want that balance of finance and computer science and doing boot camp on the side, then I guess you get a little bit of everything. So I think it really depends on what you really want to focus on for your career path. And there's always room to, like later on in the future, if you decide that you want to switch paths, if you want to specify in cybersecurity more, then I'm guessing you can always change. But yeah, it's definitely dependent on what you want to do, I think.
Yeah, fantastic. And kind of leading on from that, I guess, Stefan asks, Jason, do you find that your employers preferred your TAFE qualifications to uni qualifications? And do you feel like you learnt more practical skills at TAFE than at uni?
Well, they had to prefer my TAFE qualifications because I didn't have any university ones. Yes, look, it's funny. You can have people that are trained up to the hilt with certifications, and when it comes to doing a job, they unfortunately can't take the theoretical side to a practical. So having a good, strong mix of the practical side, look, TAFE from a practicality component and the skills that you got, look, it was hands-on, but to me, it was just a course. We'd sit down and we'd work on a Linux system or a Windows system or a Windows server or whatever it was, and we'd go through and build that out. But I don't think that's any different, to some of the stuff that you would potentially do at university. They just go deeper into it. But it's what can you show them from what you've done, or what are your hobbies? I had one guy that did this the network security course with me at TAFE. And he got picked up almost within a year after getting his certified ethical hacker certification, and picked up by one of the big pen testers in Sydney. He just was, he was very keen with it. He didn't have any experience, but he had the stuff that he was doing at home and in what he enjoyed doing, which was practicing all that stuff legally. But that's where it sits. For me, I could talk. I wouldn't say I'd get myself into interviews because I had nothing there. In fact, when I first started with one of the distributors that was selling Palo Alto Networks, they didn't want to hire me to start with because I didn't have any experience with the big security vendors. And when I came back and said that all security is the same, it's just a different hat that sits on each of the vendors. As much as that's, we know that's not necessarily true. But the fact that I'd done something with Netgear, but not Palo Alto Networks in security, it's same. The problem you're trying to solve is the same. It's just the tools you're using is different.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the kind of key messages we found in the magazine. This issue is that, these skills can be very transferable across different areas. I'll just have a final question because we're running out of time. Stefan asks if you don't have any IT qualifications, can you obtain an opportunity in the cyber industry? Stefan, I know you can find some details about this in the magazine. There are a lot of postgraduate qualifications where you can do any degree. Music, there's been people who've moved into music, into cybersecurity. Would any of you have any kind of final comment on what would be your kind of number one go-to step to find out more about getting into cybersecurity? James, the school cybersecurity challenges are the obvious example for teachers and students. Any other ideas?
And I mean, I should point out right at this month, because we're essentially in Cybersecurity Month, these activities are freely available to the general public, care of the generous sponsorship of CBA. So you can actually have a go, even if you're not in a school right now, on Cyber One, and start thinking about whether the skills that you develop in there are actually skills you'd be interested in pursuing in the longer term. I think the other thing that I want to just very quickly pick up on what Jason said is cybersecurity is a developing field. At the moment, I'm not sure that there is an enormous difference between the practical skills you would develop in many universities and the practical skills you would develop in a higher level certificate at TAFE. But the critical thing that employers will look for is that you've had a go at learning and continuing to develop those skills yourself as well. And so I would strongly recommend, I mean, you mentioned CTF before, capture the flag. It's well worth going and looking at some capture the flag activities wherever you're studying to continue to develop those problem solving skills, those kind of the resilience, the tenacity, all of that kind of stuff by throwing yourself at those problems even before you start approaching employers. I think it'll make an enormous difference to your probability of being employed, which right now is already extremely high because everyone is looking for cybersecurity professionals.
Absolutely. So CTF, you can do it through at school level, you can do it at university level. I would just like to thank my panelists. Just fascinating discussion there. Associate Professor James Curran, Jason Spindlow from Palo Alto, and Shanis Lovin from the CBA. I'll just hop into a little bit more detail about those further resources that you can get. We do have a whole lot of resources that you can find on careerswithstem.com, as well as the magazines. That includes quizzes, study paths. You can find a list of all of the cybersecurity courses that might be available. You can kind of find out what you're most interested in and choose which course is best for you. They are free, available there, so do hop on to careerswithstem.com. Thank you again for a wonderful panel. Again, I've nearly convinced myself to go off and study cybersecurity, and I really enjoyed hearing about all of your roles and your different, the different things that you did today. So thanks everybody, and we'll see you next time on Careers with STEM.